Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me clearly? Okay, before we start, while we are waiting for others to join in, here are some webinar housekeeping reminders. Kindly ensure that all mics are on mute, and please ensure that all the mobile or as well as your laptop is on mute, yeah, the mic. And should you have any questions, please type in the questions into the chat box below. And do take note that this webinar will be recorded and the recording will be sent to all registrants via email, and it will be sent together with a feedback form for you to help us to improve our future webinar experience in order for us to bring you a better webinar next time. So the next one before we start, we have today our speakers, the panelists, Mr. Jeremy Lee from Just Login, the Regional HR Manager. And we have Mr. Chan Chiu Hao, our Chief Operations Officer of Just Login. And our guest speaker for today, Ms. Rebecca Chin, the Head of Human Resources from Purno. And right now, let's make sure that everyone has mute their microphone once again. And don't forget to key in the question and submit it in the chat box below, yeah? And let's start our webinar for today. And once again, hello and welcome everyone to our very first webinar series for 2022. Today, we will be discussing the managing the workforce in a hybrid environment with our panelists, as mentioned earlier. And my name is Hazel Jasny. I'm sitting in on behalf of Patricia as your moderator for today's webinar. For those of you who are new to our webinar session, I would like to give you a brief introduction about Just Logged In. Just Logged In is a Singapore-based award-winning software founded and headquartered in Singapore in 1999 as the pioneer of cloud-based application. So Just Log In has grown to over 2,500 customers based in over 25 countries today. Just Log In is ideal for all businesses, including startups and small, medium enterprise, SMEs, ranging from people, payroll, leave, attendance, expense, mobile app, and also safe clock. With mobile first and employee first approach, which is targeted to the millennials and the Gen Z, Just Login solution can make and help businesses to focus on productivity and their people rather than getting tangled up in some paperwork. Without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Chan Chiu Hao, our first speaker for today. Warm welcome to Chan Chiu Hao.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chow Hao. I'm the CEO of Just Login. So I think today I've been with Just Login for about close to half a decade, more than half a decade. So for me, I've seen the changes that this COVID has brought to the workforce, a lot amongst all our 2,500 customers. And I think there's some insights that I'd love to share with everyone today. And stay tuned. Nice meeting everybody, though virtually.
Right. So on that, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Jeremy Lee. Please welcome Mr. Jeremy Lee.
Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm the HR for Just Login. So I've been a little bit Just Login for about 3 years, coming to 3, a little bit lesser than Chiu Hao, right? But happy to be joining this webinar to share a little bit in terms of the experiences and the challenges that we face as a HR in today's context in terms of a hybrid work environment. So happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And last but not least, let's welcome our third speaker for the day, Ms. Rebecca Chin from Purno. Please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Chin, the Head of Human Resource for Furuno, the market leader for marine radars. We are also the first in the world to invent the first fish finder for the fishing industry, and other high-tech marine electronics like sonars, fish finder, GPS, and most recently weather radar, of which in the last few years we've been in partnership with ST and PUB, providing Singapore more accurate prediction of rainfall as published in the media. Over the past 20 years, I've gained work experience in the technology, healthcare, oil and gas, marine, trading, F&B, non-profit organizations, and other consulting industries with extensive experience in talent acquisition, learning and development, business partnering, and talent management. In my free time, I enjoy volunteering, of which in the last 19 years, I've served in various capacities as head of non-profit, alumni, town councillor, committee member, Cub Scout leader, and other active roles. Most recently as Deputy Camp Commander, heading the Marcom section in the planning of an international camp for the Girl Guides Association, and also Vice President for Public Relations for Toastmasters Group. And I'm grateful to be spending a lot of time on personal development during the pandemic while not traveling. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. That was like a full introduction, and we know Rebecca already in just 2 minutes. Okay, so with that, as this is a panel session, so I would like to invite again Chu Hao, and I want to ask him your point of view on how automation has improved employee experience in hybrid work culture. So Chu Hao, what do you think of that?
Well, I think in first of all, let's maybe take a step back, right? When you talk about the this new hybrid thing, I think for a lot of companies it's quite new, right? Before COVID, a lot of companies will either kind of full-time office or full-time remote, right? Rather that it's very little case where there's like part-time. But for us in Just Log In, we've been dabbling in this practice for a while. So every month we used to do like maybe a couple of days a month, a couple of days a month where we actually let employees work from home. So we have been trying that for a while. And when COVID hit, we went kind of full force everyone from home, and now we're trying to do hybrid. But one thing that I realized, at least from our side, is that when we move from on-premise, or is it like in-office or work from home situation, there was one thing that surprised us effectively was when COVID hit, there was almost no downtime in our operations. Employees just went home straight away, open our laptop and start working. Because part of the things that we did well was that almost all our systems are on the cloud. And has been always the case. So we have almost no legacy, no on-premise systems in the office. So where I see this automation really help, especially in today's workforce, is that you need to kind of consider the fact that there is a lot of avenues to automate almost everything towards the cloud. Your HR system, your ERP systems, your accounting systems, IT systems can be pretty much virtual. There shouldn't be anything that requires you to be physically at the office first. So that has kind of made things a lot easier in general. And I think companies should, even given this experience over the last 2 years, should take even a more aggressive stance towards cloud-basing their systems. So that way they will be able to do this hybrid better. But I think one of the key challenges people feel is that with this new hybrid situation is everyone has built into a routine over the last 2 years. They have all their homes set up nicely. It's harder for them to get employees back to the office nowadays, in my opinion. So I think I'd love to hear from the other panelists, what their thoughts on that. But I think the general challenge now for most companies is how do you get employees back? And how do you manage this shift base? Without any system in place, it's going to be a huge challenge. So that's something that we at Just Login has looked at, and something that some companies use our mobile app, a scheduling system, time and attendance system to do this kind of shift-based work. We're also doing a little bit of R&D and how to do this, implement this shift-based stuff for companies going forward. So there's some good, interesting things on the pipeline.
Right, that's very informative and very useful. I mean, like coming from the perspective of you managing offices regionally, like in Myanmar, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, as well as in Malaysia itself. What are your thoughts, Jeremy, on what Chu Hao just mentioned about that as a HR personnel?
Yeah, I mean, as a HR, I mean, being a tech firm, I think what Chu Hao shares is also, I think there's a lot of, from a HR, there is a lot of, I would say, purposeful planning that we do at the back end, right? And when COVID hit, for Just Login itself, we are ready, I told my boss, within 2 hours activation time, we can get the entire workforce on the work from home environment. I think, and that itself is the how prepared we are in terms of the tools we use, in terms of the employees themselves. We are ready to work from home almost readily, immediately. However, I mean, when it comes to like a hybrid work environment, definitely there are its challenges. The one of the most common challenge that I always face, is communication, right? When you're in an office environment, it's so easy to have that common chatter. It's so easy for us to build understanding. However, when you move on to a work from home environment, this type of rapport, this type of communications gets broken down, right? So it's important that we use tools, making sure that we have our team set up, making sure that you have a common platform for people to discuss on. And I mean, I just want itself, one thing good is that in terms of the platform, it's one is a common platform for everyone to get on board. Staff can see whom is on leave. You can see in terms of our teams, in terms of communication, everything is there. So one thing in that aspect, I would say that in terms of the management collaboration, it does help the managers to keep updated and informed, with regards to managing a hybrid workforce.
Right. On that, right? I can see that Rebecca is like nodding many times, like agreeing to what Jeremy just said. So, would you like to share your thoughts on that note, Rebecca?
Thank you, Hazel. All right. So for Furuno itself, right, we were very fortunate because like Just Login, we were able to transit into a hybrid workplace as we've been planning for automation for the past years prior to COVID pandemic. Although it took a little while for everyone to adjust well into the new working arrangements, we were very, very fortunate because we started early digitalization, and we were also using Just Login for a while before, and everyone was getting used to it. I remember when we first started using Just Login, we were using just a normal system, and there was no app, there was no web-based platform, so to speak. And at that time, it was a little difficult because when HR needs to do something related to the HR platform, we had to get to our laptops or make sure that we are in the office PC and such. And when we started using Just Login, it was so convenient, and we had praises from everyone because they were like, oh, it's so inconvenient. It's so convenient to apply for leave, and over just using the app, managers can just approve the leave over the app. So that was one of the things that really helped us. Along with that, of course, our ERP system, we also went cloud-based. We were also using Microsoft Teams. So of course, Teams, it was not intensively used. We had to arrange for training sessions for our colleagues at that time. So aside from that, in terms of employee engagement, there was a lot of engagement to do. We first started off with surveys. We were working with a vendor on surveys as well. So that was how we get good engagement feedback that we could actually utilize the data to help us during the COVID pandemic. So of course, the other thing that's really important, like what Jeremy mentioned, is about communication. So there was a lot of communication being done. And when it comes to communication, we also need to make sure that we respond to conversations and to engage our people, to be curious, to be humble at the same time, and making sure that we do not have a communication breakdown with our people. So with that, we decided to engage our colleagues, because there's a time whereby, you don't start not seeing your colleagues. So at that time, we started brainstorming, what can we do? So probably we started arranging something called the La Kopi. So that is aside from the monthly talks that we arrange. We started doing La Kopi, so maybe if there is something interesting, like a certain, maybe International Women's Day, we did up quizzes, we created competitions, we did lucky draws to sort of engage our colleagues to dress up. So we even had colleagues who dress up as male, who dress up as women, and was so fun, and brings people together. So that was one of the things we did. We also, when we started having to wear masks, one of my staff was, she's very talented in knitting. So she started knitting for the whole company. And we had this mask extender. Yeah, we did a very pretty card just to show that Furuno cares. And we sent it to them with the mask extender, one by one. So each of them receive it as a surprise. So that was what we did. And of course, there's also other things like sending Grab vouchers to celebrate certain successes that we have. We also did surprises like sending fruit tarts. You know, instead of choosing something that's unhealthy, we tried something like fruit tarts, which is healthier. Yeah, and of course, we arrange online exercise classes and such, yeah, during the pandemic. So people are happy, and they realize that when they were comparing with other organizations, of course, Furuno is not the best. We are sure other companies are doing better than us, but we are not the worst. So at least we sit somewhere in between, and we had praises. And the most importantly is that our people are happy. So we make sure that this inclusivity, that's also learning at the same time, because when we are doing those quizzes, we make sure they learn something out of it. And yeah, so there's new knowledge gain and things like that. So everyone contributes, and it becomes like, oh, it's a challenge, but at the same time, everyone contribute ideas and things like that. Yeah. So it's also a chance for the team, even the HR team, to grow together, learning new things. So sometimes, like, we have a new topic that we want to arrange for Lagopi. So and one of the staff may not be familiar with it. So we got them to, okay, can you do research on it? Then you come up with the questions. So that's when people grow and learn at the same time. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca. I mean, that's very interesting to know that Furuno have this engaging activities to employees.
Of course, Hazel. The other thing is also because we also had people who some are based in the office, some are based at home, some are actually on site because we have engineers. So a lot of times it was really helpful when we had Just Login mobile app. So when people clock in, we know exactly where they are. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, good. I mean, I actually like to interject a little bit here. I mean, Rebecca,
Sure.
your team seems to have done quite a good job there. So I'm just curious, as in now that everyone's kind of like the market's opening up again, work from home is already kind of like, companies are moving back. Are you guys moving your employees back on a hybrid environment?
Okay, good question, Chu Hao. Actually, we are still at about 30% back in the office on a rotation basis. At any one day, probably 30% are in the workforce. One of the reasons why is also because we felt that we were doing well, even during the pandemic, fortunately. And our management and ourselves, we feel that we're operating fine because I think we're well equipped, with all the tools that we require, like what Jeremy says. So it was really, but we do see more people going back, and managers, heads sending more people back to the workforce, to the office itself. In fact, this morning I was in the office, and I'm back home now. So we do see gradually sending more workers back to the office, but then again, we are pretty happy with the hybrid working arrangements, and we might push for more probably work-life integration, so to speak.
And I don't know about you. I mean, but for me personally, sometimes I'm thinking about it, right? It's like when we do the hybrid setup, it can be a bit challenging because you have half the team there, half the team not there, and sometimes it becomes very intentional. Like, okay, I had to go in because it's my day to be in, but really there is no real value to be physically in the office other than the fact that you need to be in the office. Right?
That's really true, Chu Hao. Yeah, in fact, this morning because I saw my MD in the office, so I had a quick chat with him, and it seems like he as a Japanese, typically in Japanese companies, they're very you are at your desk, you sit on your desk, and that's when you are working. When you're home, you're not. But he's very open because he has worked in Europe and America before. So in fact, he was also wondering, hey, how come HQ is still doing it so often, working in the workplace? So he's very supportive with working from home, working out of office, so to speak, as long as we produce the results. So that's something which we are very grateful for as a Japanese organization, which people always have the other mindset, whereby it's like you have to be seated at your desk, before you to be working. So we had this conversation about this topic, and seems like he's very supportive, and we found that people can be more productive, because we do have some colleagues who move who are staying further away from the workplace. So in other words, each day, if they come to the workplace, they're wasting 3 hours, of which that 3 hours, 2 hours can be used for work, or even 1 hour. That's something which we appreciate about.
Yeah. I mean, for me, is I sometimes trying to figure out the justification as well. I mean, this part of being in management is like you think of all these challenges amongst all the employee, right? So I think from my end, I think one of the key things that I always have a debate with Jeremy on is like, how should we implement this work from home situation? Like for example, just now that everyone's working from home or working from office, you want to go back to a hybrid situation. It's like on the day that you have to go back to office, it's like I figure out going back to office via Grab and back, it's gonna cost you at least $50. Especially when those times hit. So to go to work and back, it's actually cost the employee first either time, or they can take like buses, MRT, or they can go if a rush of time, then they'll have to take a Grab and stuff, and it's going to be expensive, right?
Exactly.
So it's costing some cost there, and that is something that we kind of we as well, we are fully aware that we kind of mindful that these are the challenges and these are the cost benefits that as an organization we had to consider an employee's perspective, right? I think. And Jeremy, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. When nowadays when we're hiring people, it's also very difficult. Working from home situation and hybrid work situation is always a discussion regarding employment as well.
One thing which is quite interesting to note is that previously when we are hiring people, it's very hard to get people on a candidates on a call during office hours. But now on the work from home, it's quite easy to get them during office hours. Right, but I think what Chio pointed out in terms of the workplace, getting people back to workplace, I think it takes a conscious effort, for us to actually communicate the social and career benefits, of being in an office, right? I mean, prior to the pandemic, office is a place to work, home is and outside office is a place for you to socialize, right? But now it's a change, with remote work. Actually, now office plays a more crucial place where people can socialize, and I think that is where, as leaders, as management, we have to take advantage of it, So you want to identify different tasks to be done at home, different tasks to be done in the office. I think for everyone here, you would know, to mentor someone, to guide someone, do it over a Zoom call, it can be very frustrating. But if you have that person right beside you and you run through with them, it's so much easier, right? So there has to be a conscious effort, to communicate to the staff that when you come to the office, it has to be more collaborative. It has to be for meetings. It has to be, for within, even for employees themselves, it's also a form of career progression, because everyone sees everyone. You can communicate with the management staff, you can communicate with your managers, you can collaborate and work on things together. On a company level, you can bring people for lunch, you can make sure there's a form of not just interaction within the department. I've realized that on work from home, there's always silos communication. But when you're back in the office, you can have cross-department communication. You can get the entire office out for lunch. You can do some of team bonding, even more happy hours. I think Chio and myself would love it, right? So make sure there are some forms of incentive, and there has to be some conscious planning behind it. Yeah. And that's what I want to share. I think it cannot be just in the past where you just tell people, hey, look, if you're going to come back on Monday, Tuesday, you're going to come back on Wednesday, Thursday, and they come back, you realize there's no difference. If there's no difference, then there will always be that consideration at the back end, why I come back for.
Yeah. No. So anyway, I mean, my take is also quite interesting. I mean, nowadays, I'm looking at resumes coming in, from millennials or Gen Z, and then one of the key things I realize is that the younger generations don't stay on a job for too long. You see, on average, everyone's staying about a year. You know, it used to be like 2 years. Now it's like you're dropping down to a year per job situation. So I think one of the key things as well that maybe companies have to consider, I mean, how to plan your company's growth going forward as well, is like with this whole gig economy, this whole work from home situation, and this hybrid workforce situation, the companies in the general are going through a big change because employment nowadays, they don't really just have to apply for a job within the country because of all this. Everyone's come to remote work, right? So effectively, they can apply a job with you. They can also apply for a job for maybe somewhere across the border, right? In Malaysia, in Australia, and somewhere. So you're no longer competing for talent within the country. You're competing for talent globally, in fact. So the reverse for companies might be interesting to think about is maybe you can build out your workforce to encompass foreign employees, right? So you extend get talent all over the world, and therefore when this kind of situation happens, you find that your company is going to be a mix of permanent, temp staff, remote staff all over the countries, and that's what we are feeling within Just Login. We are seeing that our workforce is getting more and more dispersed. Recently, we got candidates applying from all the way from Sri Lanka, from all over the place that we would actually consider and hire, regardless of where they are. So that's how we see the new workforce environment evolving. I'm not sure if Varuna, you guys are looking at the same thing. I'm not sure if
we do see that. On the other hand, we were also thinking about whether there's a chance whereby we will be bringing people together in one place as well. But of course, we are also looking at, like I mentioned, work-life integration and things like that. So you're right. Regarding the hiring, I think we do have quite a number of candidates from, people who are working with us from different countries, and some of them actually went back to their country and they're working remotely, and everyone is happy because they get to spend time with their family during this time. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Hazel, back to you.
Yeah.
So, thank you. I'm happy that my panelists are like enjoying each other's conversation and exchanging ideas. So less airtime for me. But nevertheless, going back to this working in a hybrid environment, there are some concerns that are being raised, such as like the data privacy, and also like on data and system security wise. So what are your thoughts on that, Chuhao, with regards to this safety data?
Yeah, I mean that is something that is potentially true, right? You bring a laptop back, you're accessing data outside of your company premise. Unfortunately, that will always be a potential risk there. But I mean, the point here is you can't just because of that risk, kind of look at the whole thing and just throw the whole thing away, because I think there are many tools out there that can do this security setup. So we have heard of cases, do a little virtualization and all that. But I think the main point here is that even at this problem, even at the level, it's nothing to do with whether it's hybrid or is it remote. It happens even when they are physically in the office. So being on remote, frankly, it's about the people you hire. Whether or not it's hybrid or not, it doesn't really make a difference. The risk will still be there. So there are ways to mediate this, but you got to think about it. It's nothing to do with a hybrid or remote working situation.
Right. What are your thoughts about that, Jeremy? Because I can see that you're not agreeing, neither disagreeing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Chuhao making a point, which is data protection. I'm also a data protection officer for Just Login, right? So in terms of data privacy, in terms of having sufficient internet security measures, applies not just whether you're at home, applies everywhere, right? But I think it comes from a company viewpoint where we have to take a more holistic approach in terms of identifying the risks, right? Doing a full analysis in terms of your workplace, understanding what are the areas that are of concern. Of course, working from home, there is that concern whether are you using a secure network, but all this can be mitigated with tools, and within Just Login itself, we do have a very big remote workforce, right? I would say that for my team in Myanmar, practically all of them are working from home, right? So that's where we also have to make sure that we provide them with company laptops. At the same time, we make sure that they use a secure network. There is VPN. When there are certain access to certain servers, etc., this access are controlled. There are security protocols in place to make sure that our network is secure, right? So I think in terms of managing a hybrid workforce, I agree with Chihong, which is it doesn't really matter where you are. It's more as a company approach. How do you deal with internet and your data security?
Thank you for that. And I would like to ask this to Rebecca. I mean, based your experience of using Just Logged In for your whole overall HR management staff, right? What are your thoughts and what are your advice to other practitioners, the HR practitioners out there, of using HR automation tools for the current work environment, like in a hybrid work environment?
Okay, I would say, one of the most important part is really to do your homework, to research, and also to find out what are the needs of your organization. I think that's very important, because if you're not sure of what your needs are, it's very hard to determine which platform are you looking for. Get comparisons. And of course, finally, I will use the point ECA. I think for those of you who are older, you know what ECA is in Singapore. When you're in primary school and secondary school, you have to go through ECA, right? But I will use this term in three words. One is the platform being efficient and helpful for yourself, for your organization, being convenient. I think that's one. Finally, A is a vendor that constantly improves its coverage for the clients. I think that's important, because if you're going to a vendor that doesn't improve, then there's no growth and there's no continuity for your organization. So of course, other than that, I'm very fortunate to have the sales director Juhaini servicing my account. She's very prompt and really helpful, and there's a very good customer servicing team that's behind managing and helping our various questions. I think Bruno is probably one of the companies I heard that we ask the most questions. Yeah, and we are usually, when we are using a platform, my girls are very enthusiastic. So most of the time they're like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? Then we'll put in suggestions and we'll ask questions a lot. Probably Chu Hao might hear a bit, I don't know, but Juhaini probably knows more. Yeah.
I do hear it, but I think, but I do want to emphasize one more point as well. I think one thing that Rebecca's team did well was that they got the team well trained out to use the platform, right? I think one of the key things about companies is that a lot of times it's like, you got to understand implementing any system, let it be HR, let it be CRM, let it be finance. It's about making sure that in order for it to be effectively used, training is needed. And what I realized a lot of vendors need to be is like, hey, you know what, can you skip the training? They would just jump straight into the system and start using it. And then what I find is that after a while, the system doesn't suit their needs. But partly it's not because that the system doesn't suit their needs, but because they don't understand the system, all right? And at all levels. So I think what happens is that companies in general, especially now that you got this cloud, this hybrid workforce, you probably have to come to a point where you have to intentionally phase in training as part of your HR ongoing practices, training for, let it be any function. Because one thing is that you're going to miss out in this hybrid situation where people are not sitting next to each other, like Jeremy was talking about, right? Yeah, then I can't do an OJT, on the job training with my colleagues and teaching me on the site. So you're missing that element in a more if it's a remote workplace. So you kind of need to be more deliberate. And this is the perfect opportunity where, for training days, bring people in the office face to face. I think no matter what, in-person training, I feel even today's context is probably a more effective than to do a virtual training. So if you want to use the on-site hybrid in-office setup, use those days for training. I mean, that's my take. And that's usually I feel that it's been more effective. And that's the only way you can actually effectively use your systems. And yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. So I think furthermore now with this hybrid work environment, we have to make a very deliberate policies, very deliberate processes, just even on onboarding itself, right? On top of just getting the staff in, on top of just the HR orientation, what we do at Just Login is that we speak to the managers, we make sure that there is a detailed onboarding work plan for them. And something that we implemented during COVID itself is that HR actually stepped in, and during the first 3 months itself, we organized 5 separate sessions of 15 minutes catch up with each individual employee, which is very frequent in the first month, and then it slows down in the second, third month. The main purpose is to get feedback from them. Get feedback from them on how are they doing, not just in terms of work, but in terms of the assimilating to a culture, working with your managers, working with your colleagues. And I think that is the thing. You can't get that feel when you're working from home. You have to make such deliberate practices, but we need to have that empathy. When you're communicating with an employee, you must understand what is their mental space they are in. You need to acknowledge the concerns that they might have and try to work out a solution. Being employee first has to be that approach. Because if you don't do things like this, if you don't reach out to the employees, they will feel that they're just another digit within the company itself, right? So, and then coming back, when we speak to them, definitely we take notes, and all this, we share it within our Just People module. And the best thing is, coming back to collaborative tools, we can open access for this to be seen by the managers, etc. So for the managers, it's one look, they know that, oh, these are some issues they have raised. Okay, I'll take note of this, I'll take note of that. They may feel that they're getting inadequate training. They may feel that they need more TLC, tender loving care, right? So these are things that as a HR, we have to make more deliberate actions to make sure that staff settles down within the organization itself.
So it's very interesting to hear that, it's like there's so many situations that ongoing with this hybrid environment where some staff having this tech exhaustion because you have to use tools all the time, like being on video calls and whatnot. But other than that, there's an interesting question from the audience as well. I think this one goes to Chu Hao. How much trust is management giving to employees throughout this season of working from home or hybrid work environment?
Okay, how much trust is management giving? Good question. You know what? It's I think the main point, it starts from the beginning. So for us, what we realize is that when we start to hire employees, especially when we do during this phase, right, when we were hiring a lot of people remotely or we were onboarding them remotely, we are a bit more stringent on people we bring in. It's come to a point where it's probably even harder to get into Just Login than it is getting into a university, One reason is like we tend to, it starts from the first day. When I interviewing, you got to make some judgment calls, and a lot of times you have to, for us to bring on board one person, easily the person has to be interviewed by 2 or 3 of our teammates as well as senior management and peers. So that will give us a good sense. Any candidate that is a maybe is usually a no for us. Because there is something about the candidate that you probably can get a sense is a no for us. So those who eventually cross the line, we kind of know that at least we filter out those that just doesn't have the company's chemistry, the character they're looking for, or skill set we're looking for. We get them out of the way. Next phase is just to make sure that they're the proper onboarded properly, they're given the right training. Then subsequently, I think the trust is where since we can't measure them, since we can't visually see them, right? We can't see them in person and how they work. So we have to look at other KPIs to monitor, right? That's where for us, internally, we run this daily scrum every morning at 9 a.m. Everyone calls into our Microsoft Teams, right? 9 a.m. regardless of where you are at home, and they will just do a brief review of what they did yesterday, what they did today, and what the plans are for today, right? These kind of like gives a little bit of, first of all, a management sense of the velocity of the business, as well as let everybody at least start the day right and being mindful of what looking at, right? And yet they are consciously aware that yes, there's some management oversight in the rest of the day you're looking at. So if the management has such high sensitivity to daily activities, chances are you will be able to spot something if something's not going well. Maybe someone is not loaded enough with work, or someone has maybe underperforming because of some reasons. So you can get this sensitivity very, very much faster rather than you do a check-in every month. That's too long cycle. So back to Jeremy's point, to not trust your employees, I think what's happening is that you kind of still have to maintain a certain rigor in doing constant check-ins. And for us, our constant check-in is almost day-to-day scrum calls. And I think that has helped us to kind of like, first of all, over time, based on the calls and the performance match, the activity level match, we kind of know, yes, this person can be left alone, and the credibility will build up over time. So unfortunately, you have to use all these virtual methods in this work from home scenario. Even if they are in office, it's still the same thing, because the only difference is that you can interact with them more in an ad hoc situation. But in a virtual situation, the keyword is you have to be more intentional and more deliberate.
Yeah, just might add on a little bit to what Charles said. I think when I did my studies, there's also one very fundamental reason why people micromanage. I think it arises from being insecure. All right. So what we have to do is also make sure that we have the tools available to make sure that information is readily there for everyone who's working on it. So even at JustLogin itself, we make sure that we use collaborative tools such as Monday.com. We use OneDrive. Of course, HR Matters, we're using our own HRMS, right? But having clear tools for each respective departments, what you do is that you reduce the unnecessary communication among the layers itself, right? So what happens is that you let each individual be more independent in the way they work, and you reduce the reliance on the need for managers or even the senior management to manage the people below them, because information are there, updates are there, right? Of course, with the Scrum methodology coming in, everyone is kept abreast in terms of the development. So in today's context, we just have to keep using such productivity tools, collaborative tools to keep everyone informed and reduce the stress of micromanagement.
What do you think of that, Rebecca? I mean, like, two gentlemen has shared their thoughts of the performance engagement. Let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, very good points from Chu Hao and Jeremy. Similar to what Chu Hao mentioned, I do Scrum calls with my team every day at 9:15. Just to give them a little bit more time before they start. So with that, during the Scrum calls, yes, we sort of we don't specifically ask what do you do yesterday, what do you do today. At the beginning we did. Subsequently, we sort of drift a little bit away, but we still get back to it. It's usually about how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you to make your work easier? Yeah, in the sense that sort of thing. So, and the whole team knows what is going on. There's visibility of who is doing what and who is not doing what and things like that. And there's also a chance for us to get together on a daily basis. I remember one of my team member actually mentioning that especially at the beginning when we had to all work from home. She felt, she actually felt like she felt stressed, like not being able to have people interaction, as much in-person people interaction. So the daily Scrum calls was also an avenue for her to sort of share and also have that interaction, so to speak. So that's one of the things we did. Of course, to the other things like what Jeremy mentioned about checking in with the new employees, the 15 minutes check-in with each new employee. We do that as well. We also have something like a survey for new hires on the 30th day, a 60th day, 90th day, as well as 365 days, so to speak. So that's actually also another way for us to get data in. Yeah. To the other thing about managing work and things like that, about trust, we, as much as possible, I want our people to know that we trust them, and they need to understand. Each HOD have to give the deliverables to them. They need to know what do they need to deliver in order to gain that trust, in a deeper manner. One of the things I did with my team is we use within MS Teams, we use something called a planner tool. So the planner tool, each of the team member has to take ownership of this planner tool. So you can put in your tasks, certain key tasks. Like for example, in the tech talent acquisition space. So usually we will have a template done up in the HR planner section. We do so there's this checklist that is already pre-filled. So we actually started discussing how we want this checklist to be done. So each time they can just duplicate it with wherever there's a new person to hire. So at least we don't have to retype everything. It's quite efficient. It can be duplicated, and then we just change the name. Or, even things like a monthly reports and things like that, or payroll. So my payroll person will also have a checklist. So it's also easy for us to sort of remember what needs to be done and what we not need to be done. So and for my case, I will always go in and just see, what's already done. So in a way, you can also state the date that it was done. You can pre-fill in or things like that. So that's a way to also track your team members or even people, or project teams and things like that. That was really helpful for us.
Yeah. My take is that it's almost it's impossible to do manually, right? What you're talking now, it's like to the point whereby I can't even imagine doing this on a piece of paper, right?
Exactly.
So that's the challenge. But then again, it makes a lot more. It makes everyone a lot more efficient, and information is actually shared at a much faster pace than before. So I think the point here is like, from the audience, anyone who is getting a bit more worried about this new hybrid thing, I think the challenge here is how to embrace it rather than trying to fight it, because the reality of the world is that the companies of tomorrow is not going to be the same as the companies of yesteryears, right? It's going to be much more tech driven. The millennials love tech, right? You can't speak to them without WhatsApping them, right? They probably couldn't communicate. They communicate better on WhatsApp than they do on face to face. So that is something I think employers have to start realizing, that it's going to be a different game now. And I think the audience today the panelists today shared a little bit of thoughts on that. So I generally think that it's going to be different going forward.
Chu Hao, I agree with you, because we started getting a lot of inquiries from potential candidates asking, hey, is there a working from home option and things like that. So we see that really growing within the pandemic. It's like maybe out of 100% candidates, we have more than 50% asking that question.
Yeah, and the thing is, the last 2 years, everyone has already built a routine around it, right? Everyone invested in their kick-ass desks. They have their own office corner set up already over the last 2 years, and I think everyone has got a bit built into their habit and routine that they know how to operate well in this manner. In fact, they might find it going office might be a bit more hassle than it's worth, right? So I don't know. I just feel that companies unfortunately, the reality is that hybrid work is the way the world go. I can't even see it being any other way.
So Jeremy, I want to circle back to Jeremy on this hybrid work environment. Not only that, there are some arguments saying that they want to work from home or they want to work from office, a mix of both, or even asking like a 4 days work week. So as a HR practitioner, what are your thoughts about that? Because like they were saying like, oh, hybrid is work from home, work from office, but 4 days work week is also more or less like the new hybrid of it. And your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts. Is my boss in the call? Okay. All right. So I think end of the day, we have to fundamentally be aware about what's the purpose of work, right? And what's the purpose of having an office? Getting everyone, knowing the nature of your work itself will somewhat determine how many days do you require them back in the office. I mentioned just now, in terms of there's no magic number, is it a 1 day, is it a 2 day, or is it a 5 days, and there are still companies out there on a 5.5 days work week as we speak today, So it really boils down to the nature of work and what do we need the employees to do in the office, right? What is the purpose? What's the true sense in terms of you getting them back in the office? And truth to be told, throughout the past for 50 minutes on this call, we have been talking about the perks, the good things, But then again, there is still that portion of employees who are dying to come back to office. There still get portion of employees who complains to me, which is, bro, can I come back 5 days a week? My kid is calling me every hour, or there's renovation going upstairs, I don't have a good environment. Worse still, I have people who are saying that I don't even have a room. I need to work in the balcony, or so there are times where I think we are all used to the fact, which is you're undergoing a call halfway and suddenly someone knocks on the door, you woke up like that, oh, maybe it's my mom offering me afternoon tea, but there's this type of disruptions are real, but we just have to be very aware, which is there's no magic number to it. What boils down is, as a company itself, what is the purpose of you bringing the employees in, and from there you work it out. Having flexible work is not saying that we bring them in on a 2 days, bringing them in on a 3 days. Having flexible work is empowering the employees with their hours of work, and letting them have a say in terms of when do I want to come in or not, but not at the detriment of the company. It's very hard to get a balance, right? You need to engage both stakeholders, the management and your employees, and just try. End of the day, we came to this stage with trial and error, and we just have to move forward with trial and error. There will be times where we have to open up flexibility. I think at the back end, within Just Log In, we are working on a few very interesting developments in terms of trying to do some hybrid workplace modules out, and we are talking about a few things. But it's end of the day is how do we support the company goals, right? You force everyone to come back on once a day, maybe your bosses won't be happy. Bring them on 4 days a week, your employees won't be happy. There's no right solution to it. You need to engage all stakeholders and just try to find compromise, try and just move forward.
It's like a puzzle then, like you're trying to see which one suits best and meet in between.
It's always like this since day one till now, right? There has always I think that's the beauty and that's the challenges of being a HR. We are dealing with people, and there's no one solution fits all. It may fit today, it may not fit tomorrow. So we just have to keep adapting to the workforce of today and keep planning for the workforce for tomorrow.
Right. I can see Rebecca is nodding to that. I'm sure you have something to say. I mean, like changing, like what Jeremy mentioned, like what fits today may not fit tomorrow. Same goes to the HR solution, where last time you have all the paperwork to do your payroll, and now you have everything is by the mobile phone. So the solution changes from manual to digital. So what are your thoughts, Rebecca?
Actually, I would say there's no one size fits all. Yeah, it's really about really customizing to the organization's needs and your team's needs. So of course, to the topic of a 4-day work week, right? It's really about it's not really it's only one viable solution, but then again, we have to customize it for various organization needs. And of course, we have to make sure the proper tools are provided, the digital tools are provided to the employees as well. Yeah, in order for that to take place. And aside from that, is really making sure that these employees, if they do need help about their home setup and things like that, there might be, proper help rendered to them. Yeah.
We have
So,
two questions from the audience. Yeah. First question is, how do you make the remote employee stays longer? And the second question is, no one size fits all. Wow, it sounds like a shoe shop. Would companies provide like a menu for employees to choose from? I leave it to the panel. Chiu-Hao, you answer the first question.
no, I'll leave it to the rest of the team. Sorry, I just clicked on behalf of the rest.
Maybe
Yeah, maybe Rebecca, you want to answer that?
I will start. Yeah, to the topic of retention, right? It's not just about remote employees or even the employees that come to the office physically. I see them as one because we want to be fair. So I see everyone as one, and for that, right? In terms of prioritizing employee retention, I really want to start from trust. It's about really trusting employees who work from home or not, and things like that, and setting clear expectations. Setting clear expectations so everyone knows what do they need to deliver. What is clear, there should always be proper communication. And when I talk about communication, we have to be clear. There should be two-way communication, not just one way, so that we both the manager and the staff does understand what the expectations are, and we want to keep the organization as much information as transparent as much as possible based on different requirements of course, and also of course the clear guidance, and there must be help rendered when there's a need to help. And of course the other thing is about observing mental health issues, especially when the government is actually looking into mental health issues now with after during the COVID pandemic, and ensure that they have a good place to work in, not like what Jeremy mentioned, working in the balcony and things like that. So that's something which we need to. So when we did our surveys, we were also asking such questions: do they need help? Do they have a proper space at home, and things like that? Who can work from home, who cannot? When at the start of COVID pandemic, we were asking these questions. Then later on an ongoing basis, we continue to ask such questions and address these issues for them. Then of course, the other things are talking about monitoring and also measuring performance. I think that's something which we want to know. And of course, whether you have performance appraisal or not, there should be regular communications between the manager and the staff. Yeah, because we ever had, I mean, not in this organization, but I've ever heard of certain organizations whereby managers do not communicate, and when it was time to fire, then only then they knew. So that's not fair. That's not fair to the staff. And finally, of course, we don't want to micromanage, and it's really about being flexible with the employees. And also the other thing, of course, I think it's important for everyone is also to make sure that your benefits are competitive enough, okay, with maybe your industry. Yeah, or you have to benchmark regularly, because if you don't benchmark regularly, you will be at the losing end as an organization.
No, Rebecca, great points here. I mean, my take is this, right? I think right now, employees in general, one reason why the high turnover is that employees in general have bigger expectation about their personal growth than most companies can provide, right? Because their personal growth is, I'm not learning anything, therefore I'm leaving. That's the common thing that I keep hearing. Why did you leave? I've hit my plateau in this company. Can we blame them? They're probably responsible part of it, but then again, that's the reality right now. So I think it comes to a point whereby, especially remote employees, there's always a risk that remote employees will not be acknowledged as much as those that's physically in office dealing with the CEO or the management very often, right? Because you're too far, so you don't outside our mind, right? So I think that's where I think Jeremy's point about and your point about being constantly engaged is to kind of like bring your remote employees into the communication circle so that they're regularly being updated and regularly being connected with the managers and that will kind of give them a little bit more motivation connection with the main company. And that's probably my take. Back to the last point, which is you have to be more intentional.
Yep. And Chihao said something which I remembered. This has always been my something that I always mention to my remote staff, which is you are out of sight, but you are definitely not out of mind. And to add on just on one thing on what Rebecca and Chia has shared, I think one more thing is we have to make sure employees feel valued and appreciated. And at the end of the day, I think everyone loves a pat in the back. You've done something well, a praise comes across, everyone loves it. So make a conscious effort. I think this is something also for managers to be aware, even bosses. Celebrate the small wins. It's not just about, we close a big project. It's never about that, right? But along the way, when you see someone making an effort, make someone taking the extra step forward, give them a praise, give them a thank you. It could be just a simple emoticon, just to say, hey, good job on that, But this small little gestures goes a long way, right? And coming back to making a deliberate approach, I think Chia will agree. Within Just Not in itself, we also make sure that we literally force the employees to give praises every month. All right, so that is a praise to a fellow worker, to the company, but this gives them some time off work to sit down and say, hey, who actually offered a helping hand to me within the month itself? And it's always good to be on the receiving end, when I was working halfway and the Outlook notification comes up and say, hey, so and so has praised you for this, right? It feels good. It gives you the additional 10% of battery to continue fighting for the day, right? And I think retention at the end of the day, it is a holistic thing. It's an overall strategy. You as a HR, you have to do a lot of things quite right. Right, and definitely it comes with the support of the line managers, because I believe in one thing: people doesn't leave company, people leave managers. Yes,
I agree with Jeremy on the appraisal thing, because in the board it shows appraisal for the company, appraisal for the teammates or to the other people, and another thing that is good is appraisal to yourself. Praise to yourself, that which sometimes we tend to forget, we did a good job today, we just want to thank ourselves, and it brings a good positive vibe, instead of just sharing it with others. We ourselves also encourage and motivate yourself as well. Another question that is here, it says, no one size fit all. Would companies provide a menu for employees to choose from? So who would like to take that question?
Oh, I mean
Jeremy?
that statement came from me, right?
Yes.
It's ironic if I were to offer a menu and I say no one size fits all, right? But coming back to the thing is, even by providing a menu, what we mean is by providing an option to the employees, right? End of the day, we still have to assess in terms of the workforce itself. The rationale of you offering options to the employees. The rationale, is it because you have a very diverse workforce in terms of different age group, different requirements, and therefore you want to cater to different needs? If you look at your workforce, it's pretty homogeneous in terms of requirements, is quite fixed, then you may not need to cater for a menu. What you may want to do is to have just one approach, but you offer flexibility within the approach. Because we also have to remember one thing, when you offer too many options, it becomes a hassle to administer, right? So on top of being flexible, we also have to be realistic, whether can I effectively and efficiently manage this thing. As a HR, you want to implement certain return from home hybrid work environment. You also don't want to arrange it very so flexible. And end up the person only comes. You may have like 5% in the department, and end up that day only he comes back. Then you ask back the question, which is, boss, why am I coming back? I can't meet my colleagues, right? So having a range of options sounds good, but then again, we go back down to the fundamental point. Does it resolve the issues, or does it help you in terms of the things that you want to solve by bringing them back into the workplace in the first place? If it doesn't, then offering an option could be counterproductive on its own. So actually, I just log in, we implement a fixed return to office schedule, which revolves around, on average, is like 40%, which is 2 days a week, but it's consciously planned so that within the entire calendar month, everyone sees everyone. However, when there is requirements that stuff comes up, I say, hey, Jeremy, I want to come back on this day because there's renovation, or a close member got COVID, then we say, okay, we actually use a co-working space solution, and we got them elsewhere to work remotely, but not from home. So end of the day is, you must identify what is the true purpose of you bringing your employees back into the workplace. It's not just about offering a menu or offering an option. It's about what can it resolve.
Right. Thanks, Jeremy. It sounds like to me, because yes, it was exactly rephrasing of your word. One menu does not fits all. But then, what is the best way to help people to get used to the current hybrid work environment? How would we encourage them to come back to office or to work in a different situation right now? What will be the best approach? Jeremy.
In terms of, I can't speak for the rest, but I think maybe I'll just speak for myself. I think it boils back down to communication, being open with employees in terms of why you need them back. And at the same time, when they are back, they could see that, the true value of them being in the office itself, So having that communication, and then seeking feedback after you try it out for 2-3 weeks, getting a feedback in, and then monitoring the situation and make adjustments when necessary. So, even for Hazel yourself, we will be, for our Malaysia team, you'll be getting them back after working for 2 years on a remote working environment. We'll be getting them back next month. There will also be this feedback loop where we're speaking to them, getting their feedback, and we try to just try to address the majority concerns, and work things out from there. There's no hard and fast rule.
Right. Thanks, Jeremy. So we have almost exceeded the time that we have for our webinar today. And before we end, thank you everyone for the poll that you have voted to know more about the system and whatnot. And just before we end our session, don't forget to follow us on our social media link, as well as on our website. For Malaysia, you can check out our latest website, justlogin.com.my. And for the rest of the audience all over the world, you can log into justlogin.com, and you can learn more about our full HR suite by scanning the QR code that is shown on your screen right now. And I would like to thank once again Rebecca for being here as our first guest speaker for our very first webinar for 2022 series. And thank you, Chan Chiu Hao, as well as thank you, Jeremy, being here for our first series. And our upcoming webinar, do check out at our website as well as our social media. And there's a couple of thank yous from the audience to the panelists today as well. for being here on our webinar. Once again, thank you very much, everyone. Give yourself a big round of applause and see you again in the next webinar for Just Log In webinar 2022 series. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye.